Pack Sports will join us. Cause for concern, second scrimmage is happening in Corvallis and Eugene.
Yes.
And there's some injury concerns with the old Duckies. It sounds like offensive lineman, cornerback banged up.
Yes.
Probably missing the first week. The landing very vague in what he talks about with some of these injury things.
You will get no details. Will they play this year? Yes. When will they play? Find out.
Jaleel Florence sounds like the guy for sure that they're going to slowly ramp up. They're keeping him very limited. And your offensive lineman, I've named
Matthew Bedford.
Matthew Bedford, thank you.
The transfer.
Also sounds like he's not going to be available for their very hard, tough, tested game against Idaho.
I mean, the Jaleel Florence one is, I would love to have him healthy for the entire season. I think Oregon has upgraded their secondary tremendously in the offseason, and so there's a lot of bodies back there that I trust, and it sounds like he will play at some point. The Bedford one is the one that you circle. That's the one that Oregon has a lot of talent returning on the offensive line, despite losing JPJ in the middle to the NFL. But a lot of their key guys are back, including their cornerstone tackles. But I still think that's the unit that I question the most about this football team. Of just how do they gel? New center, new starters at certain positions. That to me is a big question mark for how it gels early in the season and how their offense goes, because you need that to be a strength for you, especially late in the season, especially when we're talking about Ohio State and how loaded they are. That front is ridiculously talented, man. And if you're banged up on the offensive line or you lose another guy and Bedford still isn't back, now you got a guy you don't really trust playing left guard. That becomes a massive concern. So it sounds like he'll play at some point. Nobody has any clue what the actual injury is. It's just he's banged up and we're bringing him along slowly. He's going to play at some point this year. That one is one that you circle and say, let's hope there's no other injuries on the offensive line.
I ended up watching both Hard Knocks and the Team Out West episode 2s. And I don't know if you talked at all about that Team Out West part 2, but they did a thing on the trainer.
Wilson Love.
He's a very interesting dude. He's like almost every other trainer of like, hey, the energy's always amazing with this guy. I'm like, man, these guys must snort C4.
Trainers are psychotic. They have to be.
You have to be. And like to be that way all day, every single day.
You're
taking a crazy amount of caffeine.
You're a physical therapist. You're a strength coach. You're a mental health coach. You're everything.
Well, but you mentioned the depth of defensive line, no doubt. I thought it was interesting. My only takeaway from that episode, aside from like, hey, look how revealing this is for a program that's so buttoned up and has been since Chip was there. The scene where they do this like truth-telling exercise where they sit in the auditorium and there's 3 people at different spots, and Love is one of the people.
Hard truths, I think, or something.
And he basically tells Jordan Birch, you're amazing, but you need to basically play that way. And that I thought that was cool, and I was almost like, oh, wow, they released this part? Because that's a dude that came in with high expectation, and people thought, oh, my God. And
he had an okay year last year.
Not quite the year we thought he would have, and like he's going into a pretty pivotal, I think, moment of his career of like, hey, man, you have a monster year. It could mean big things for you.
It could be a first-round draft pick if you have a monster year.
And having the trainer just outright be like, I think you can be better. I think you could bring it more. Like, those were things I thought was really revealing. You talk about the depth of defensive line. You also mentioned something about Lanning that I thought was interesting in the last segment.
Mm-hmm.
I would never argue that Lanning's in trouble or going into the season on the hot seat. No way.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't make a playoff, I don't know about, like, everything's A-okay and going swimmingly. That team hasn't...
Sure.
You've made the argument yourself that, like, they're probably the most loaded they've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
They're deep at a ton of spots. They've got a quarterback with as much experience as the last guy.
Yeah.
And probably more because they'll pass him. And so it's like if they don't make the playoff, they stub their toe twice and lose Ohio State. I don't know about that. I'm not saying he's in trouble of losing his job.
Sure.
But, man, it's going to amp
Where is
up.
it louder, in Columbus or Eugene, if both of them miss the playoff?
Well,
it's not even close.
Definitely Columbus.
That was the only argument I was making. I think that's a different level of pressure. That is serious. I could lose.
But I think it starts to ramp up in Eugene if they.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
Yeah.
But if they don't make the playoff or they don't win a national championship this year at Ohio State or they lose to Michigan again, I think I think we're so in our little bubble of talking about this day in and day out that we're overestimating how loud the noise would act. Fans would obviously be disgruntled. I would be upset. Many people would be upset if Oregon didn't make the college football playoff. I think the expectations at Ohio State are at a totally different level, though.
But barring like massive injuries at multiple sides, I mean, we are absolutely floored if Ohio State doesn't make the playoff.
Yes.
Losing a game, losing at Eugene would not shock me, but not making the playoff?
There's a difference where, let's say they both make the playoff, Oregon wins a game, then they lose a heartbreaker in the second round of the playoffs. If Ohio State does the same thing, there is noise in Columbus, Ohio. If that is their season, they make the playoff, they win their first game, but then they can't even get to the semifinals, there is noise there. And I don't think that exists in Eugene, Oregon. I think that brings a different level of pressure, not only for your coach, but inside your locker room day in and day out. Of this, we have to do this or else. And I don't think that necessarily exists in Eugene.
Mandel had Penn State down further than I thought he would. Now they have new coordinator stuff that they're turning over, but I think he had them like 6-3 in conference play. And I'm just like, the 12-team playoffs good in the way of like more interest, more intrigue, more fan bases having more juice to it, right? What's funny about it is the year you miss a 12-team playoff, like you could rattle off how many coaches of, is that guy in trouble? Is he going to get fired? How hot is that seat, right? Like DeBoer, Sarkisian, Franklin.
I mean, Cristobal's there, Day,
Cristobal, that's like
Dabo,
Lanning. Like, there's so many names that you can throw into this, like, did we make the playoff? No? What the living hell? Or you lose a game. Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
We didn't win a game. Like,
we paid for that transfer portal class. Where's it going?
We want the expanded playoff, and it's funny because it's kind of almost adding even more stress, anxiety, and anger to fan bases if they don't achieve X and Y.
You have to. Everybody has big expectations. I look around the country this year, and I don't know if any program in the nation has more pressure on them than Ohio State.
I don't think I disagree with you.
So I'm not saying that an Oregon fan won't freak out if they don't. If the Oregon goes 9-3, heads will be spinning. Absolutely.
Sure.
But I think there's a different level of expectation.
9-3 at Ohio State.
You better win this year or else, and that exists very strongly in Columbus, Ohio.